has been kind enough to take up our request of taking sessions in the refresher course and the faculty development programs that has been conducted by us. So in a way, we can say that sir is a part of our team only. He's always there for us, and he is always accepting our invite. We are really thankful, sir, for such a gesture on your part. Dr. Ajay Kumar Chauhan is the founder of researchshiksha.com. He is consultant of data science and analysis for research projects in industry and academics. He's a well-known trainer of big data analytics, machine learning using R, Orange, Python, Stata, SPSS, MOS, and eViews for data science and data analytics. Sir has an experience of more than 20 years in academic and industry. He has conducted more than 500 workshops or training programs all over the country in last 18 years on data science using softwares like R, Python, Orange, SPSS, eViews, Stata, SAS, MOS, to name a few. He is the author of three books like Financial Analysis, Business Research Analytics, and Financial Research Management. Sir has worked with the Institute of Management Technology, Ghaziabad, as an assistant professor in the area of finance and analytics. We welcome you, sir, for these sessions. And really, sir, on a personal note, I can say sir is very nice, a man of very few words, sir. But when it comes to his forte and his workshops, like I think commendable reviews that we get from the participants every time for your sessions, sir, that are there. Thank you, sir, for being there for this particular session. And over to you now, sir.
Thank you, Anjali. I think now we can start.
Yes, sir, you can start.
Okay. So, good morning to all of you. And the topic which I'm going to take today in this session is the sampling design. Now, I'm going to start the topic with one of the incidents I recently faced. What happened that last month, two scholars contacted me saying that, sir, um, we got a revision in the thesis. So we submitted the thesis 6 months back, and the evaluator uh, put some questions and asked us to revise the thesis. Then I said, okay, great. So what is the query? What is the query? So when I saw the query, they say that you have not explained well the reason of sample size. And you may not believe, in one of the university, all the thesis got revised, which are submitted in this year. So I surprised to know this fact that a thesis can be revised on this issue, and not only one. All the theses submitted during a particular period are revised in a particular industry, university. I'm not going to tell you the university name, but this is the fact. So now you can understand how important the sample size is. And not only in thesis, there are many reviews I got, and there are many scholars, they contacted me, and they say that sir, these are the reviews we got from the reviewer in the research paper, and this is a very common review, that you have not explained the reason of sample size. So you cannot imagine how important this topic is nowadays. If you forget, or if you are not explaining the reason of the sample size, it means you will be in trouble later or sooner. So my complete session is on the basic aspect of the sampling design, and I hope you will enjoy, you will learn few things. So with this note, I'm going to start the session. And basically, when you open a research paper, The first line in the introduction is known as opening line. And this line is always, I call it as a, like in cricket, whenever the first batsmen come and face the bowler on the first over. So this requires a lot of skill to face the bowlers, the first ball in the cricket match. Sim- Similarly, when you read a paper, and I have found that in most best quality journals, the first line is the best line of the paper. Similarly, when you start a session, the first example is the opening example, and I think that it will create an interest among you to understand the topic. So now I'm going to share my PPT and formally start the session. Okay. So this is the topic is sampling design, and there are few things which you must know in this sampling design. So let me run the PPT. Okay. Mhm. Now in the research, there are many things you need to define, and you must have clarity on these topics. For example, there are many people who don't know the difference between sampling frame, the target the population unit, or the unit of the study. So these are the basic things. So let's start from there. Now, first is the population. Population, basically, the population is which can be the benefited from your study, or it is a group. Basically, it is a group which you are having interest to study. Like for example, if you are studying the buying behavior of car, your population is anybody who is having the car. Maybe in India, maybe in Europe, maybe in the US. You cannot say that my population is only in India. Culture may be a control variable in this case, but normally when we say the buying behavior, it means the buying behavior of anybody in the world. Because theory is not limited to India. You cannot say it is an Indian theory or it is a US theory or it is a Europe theory. Theory is without any boundary. So that's why when you study a theory, when you study a hypothesis, the population should not be limited to any area. The population is the global. Now, the population is the global. After that, because we cannot collect the data from the global population, that's why we decide our target population. Now, your target population may be Delhi NCR, or Punjab and Haryana, or Maharashtra and Pune, Bombay and Pune, or Karnataka or Kerala. So, because I am handling so many projects, so they have decided their own area as a target population. The scholars who are in Tamil Nadu, they take the Chennai and nearby areas as their target population. So there is no problem in that also, because it is a fact that you can't collect the data from each part of the country. So I have seen it is a trend nowadays that you take nearby areas as a target population. So target population is which is approachable, and population is universal. And then you have to decide what is the unit of the study. Unit of the study means from where you are collecting the data. Your unit of study may be the students. Your unit of study may be the patients. It depends upon the study. Now, in most of the, because I belong to the business, I taught MBA of 20 years. So we talk about the business. And in business, the most important unit of study is the customer. If we talk about the primary data, if we talk about the secondary data, then we take the data from the companies and all. So the target population means which is approachable. And within the target population, you have to pick the sample. Now, this is the critical issue. This is called sampling design. So how you pick the sample from the target population? And it is a scientific process. It is not a process which you take on your own and you say it is my wish, ये तो मेरी मर्जी है, मतलब no. It is a scientific process. You have to explain the sampling design, sample size, and justification of the sample size, and you have to define the sampling frame also. So it is the most important question in sampling design, that how you pick the sample from the target population. Number one, the first concept is that what is the sampling frame? So uh, we have to define the sampling frame also. So sampling frame is the list, or it is the document where you get the data of each and every unit of the target population. And suppose I want to know that which 500 companies are listed in NSC, top 500 company, I will get the list very easily. So it is sampling frame. Suppose I want to know that who are the owner of Mercedes car, so I can go to the company or I can go to the dealer, they can give me the list. So list is available. But if I ask you, do you have the list of the customers visiting the malls? No, you cannot have the list. So in this case, there is no sampling frame. If I ask you, do you know who will drive the car in this road? There is no list available for this. So sampling frame sometimes available, some sampling frame sometimes not available. Now, what is the importance of sampling frame? The importance is that if you don't have sampling frame, uh, it is very difficult to justify that you are using the random sampling. Random sampling. Random sampling means the probability of each and everybody to be the part of your sample is equal. So it is very difficult to justify. But if you are having sampling frame, then you can say I adopted the lottery method, I adopted the random table method to pick out the random sample, then it is easy. But without having the sampling frame, it is just impossible to justify that we are taking the random sampling. Okay. Now, there are few terms you can see here. If the procedure of picking the sample from the target population is faulty, then the chances of error is very high. And in this case, we are using a concept called statistical inference. The concept is statistical inference. The statistical inference means, uh, can you say that the results that you are getting after analyzing the sample is also applicable on the population? Right? This process is known as statistical inference. Statistical inference means whatever result you are getting from the sample study can also be generalized on the population. But the problem is that if your sampling design is having errors, then statistical inference cannot come. The study is said to be the biased or full of errors. So that's why the sampling design is important, because it is just impossible to study the population. That's why we go for the sample study, and sample should be selected in such a way that whatever result of the hypothesis testing comes can be applicable on the population. So this process is known as statistical inference. There are two terms we are using uh, in sampling design. One is called statistic and second is called parameter. If you measure something from the population, this concept is known as parameter, and that's why any study which is applicable on the population is called parametric study. So you know that statistics is divided into two categories: parametric and non-parametric. So parametric means the population. Anything which is related to the population is parameter. And the same thing, if it is related to the sample, it is called statistic. So statistic and parameters are the two different things. Parameter belong to the population, statistic belong to the sample size. Okay. Now we assume that the statistic should be similar to the parameter. Now you can see there are two circles in the slide. One is big circle and another is small circle. So big circle is known as census. Census means when each and every unit, when each and every element comes in the circle, it is called census. Census consists of all the units, and we can pick a small sample from the census. So it is a bookish definition, but in reality, we go to the census, target population, sampling frame, and so many other figures, so many other concepts also. But in general, the sample is the subset of the population. Now, in sampling design, there are few basic concepts, and we should know that these basic concepts will help you in finding out the accurate results from the sampling study. Well, the first is central limit theorem. Central limit theorem say that if you increase the sample size, the distribution tends to be normal. The central limit theorem say that if you increase the sample size of the sample, the distribution of the sample tends to be normal. Means whatever variable you will measure on the sample, they will be normally distributed. So that's why we try to increase the sample size to that extent so that we should have the normal distribution in the data set. Okay. And basically, in all the universities submitted in the foreign countries, I have seen that they reported the normality of the data. So they prove that my data is normally distributed. So whatever result I will draw, whatever is result I will draw from the hypothesis testing can be also applicable on the population. And basically, in the books, there is a concept of large samples and the small samples. So what is the difference between large samples and the small samples? And many people say that if the sample size is less than 30, it is small sample. When the sample size is more than 30, it is a large sample. No, it is mentioned in the books, but actually you cannot say it is always true. So the basic definition is that if the distribution of the sample is normal, then it is considered to be large sample. When the distribution of the sample is not normal, it cannot be considered as a large sample. So I believe that the normality of the sample decides whether it is normal or it is not normal. Okay, and there is when we apply t-test, you know that there is an independent sample t-test. The first of the concept is that we have to analyze the variance of the two samples. That is called homogeneity of the variance. This homogeneity of the variance means when the variance of the two samples are same, then they can be treated as a large sample. Okay, so there are different concepts in the statistics. Then we are having the law of large number. The law of large number say that if your sample size is large, the probability of getting the accurate result is high. So large samples gives you more accuracy. And like I'm giving you one example, I want to know that whether I should buy this car or not. For example, there are so many decisions, and for the decisions we ask many people. So I asked two people that whether I buy this car or not. So both are giving me different answers. Now the question is that to whom I believe. So I believe on that person who is having more experience, right? Suppose you are having a doubt in statistics, and there are many statistic teachers around you. You will ask the doubt from everybody. Now, can you take the suggestion of each and everybody equally? No. You will give more weight to that person who is having more experience, right? In meta-analysis, you know that there is a concept called meta-analysis. In meta-analysis, we collected the different studies and we assigned more weight to those studies which are having the large sample size. So that's why the studies with the large sample size are carrying more weight. And in systematic literature review, we provide this information about the sample size. In meta-analysis, the meta-analysis totally depends upon the sample size. If you are conducting a study on a small sample, it means all other people, other scholars give less weight to your study. If your sample size is large, it means your study will get more weight. So you can understand what is the importance of large sample size. So it is believed that if the sample size is large, you will get the more accurate results. So that's why we try to increase the sample to that extent it can be considered as a large sample. Then we are having another concept called law of random selection. Law of random selection means if you select your sampling units randomly, the chances of accurate information will increases. Means if because you know that there are two type of sampling: random sampling, non-random sampling. The random sampling have more accurate results as compared to non-random sampling. This is the law of random selection. So when we go for the sampling design, we should keep in mind about the three concepts. Okay, so let's move to the next. Now the question is that why sample size, wet sample survey is preferred over the census survey. So in short, I'm telling you there are many reasons. For example, if in census survey more money is required, more time is required, more manpower is required, and more time period is required. But in sample survey, less time is required, less money is required, and less finance is required, less manpower is required. So, in research papers, most of almost 100% of the research scholars they go for the sample study. Census study is conducted only once in a decade by the government. Like in Indian government, we are conducting the census survey once in 1 decade. And even this census survey took 3 years. Census survey took 3 years to complete, and government employed each and every teacher because teachers are everywhere. So so they employed the teachers to conduct the survey. So and they conducted not only teachers, they included so many other people, Anganwadi people and other people for conducting the survey. Okay, so there is no point in discussing more than that. And because anyhow, we have to go for sample survey, not census survey. Now I am coming to the concept of sampling process. So what to mention in the thesis or what to mention in the research paper. So in research paper, we always put a heading called sampling design. Similarly, we in the thesis also we put one heading as a sampling design. And in sampling design, we have to discuss each and every step in detail. So first of all, we define the population. So what is the population of the study? The population may be the buyer, the population may be the social media user, the population may be the teacher, the population may be the patient, right? So, and we do not included the area in the population. We cannot say that the buyer online shoppers in India is population. No, population is not limited to the area. Population is universal. Then we define the target population. Target population means the population which is approachable to us, which is approachable means we can include these people in the sample survey. Then that small unit is known as target population. And in most of the research papers, actually in India we are having a habit of writing the title like the study of online shopper and study of Delhi NCR and Delhi of Haryana and Punjab, because it is a wrong, actually wrong concept that the study should not be limited to particular area. Yeah, you can write this only in this target population that we are studying the customers who are residing in Delhi NCR or who are residing in Lucknow and nearby areas, or Chandigarh and Punjab and Haryana. So you can write only this thing in the target population, not in the title and not in the objective also. And I have seen many university they knowingly ask their scholars to put the target population in their objective, so which is a wrong thing. Because research means the study of a practical aspect of the theory, which should not be the area bound. So target population is the studies, the sampling units which are approachable to you, and you can define your target population as per your convenience. Okay, now after that we have to select the sampling technique. So there are three kind of sampling, two kind of sampling techniques. One is known as the random sampling. Second is non-random sampling. I will discuss all this sampling in detail. After that, the sample size. Now it is the sample size. Sample size is something which can destroy your research. If you don't justify the sample size, if you don't justify the sample size, the reviewer of the paper ask you to define it. Otherwise, your thesis will got revised that you have to define your sample size. And in most of the time, the scholar asks me, sir, वो formula वाला लगा दो, formula. There are a few formulas, and they ask me to apply the formula to define the sample size. And they don't know which formula is applicable, but it is a common request that sir वो जो formula होता है ना कोई formula वो लगा दो बस. So that is the tendency of the um, people of justifying the sample size. And even in many presentation I found that the panel members say that वो formula नहीं लगा यार तुमने, वो formula. So this is also a case that the formula defined justify the sample size. Okay, so I will discuss those formulas also, but uh, so this is the common thing in sampling sample size justification. Okay, then you execute the sample, and the this is the process. And yeah, target population I already defined to you. The target population means which is approachable. And one thing which is very important here, that is the sampling frame. Sampling frame means if you have the list of the people in your target population, then it is very good. Then you can go for random sampling. Basically, what is the sampling frame? Sampling frame is the list, or it is the source material from where you can draw the sample. For example, if now I am going to study the all the faculty members who are teaching in MBA institutes in Delhi NCR. This is my target population, not population, target population. Now, can I say I'm having the sampling frame? Yes, I'm having the sampling frame. I can go to their website of each institute, and almost 90% of the institutes they disclose their faculty members. So I can make a list of the faculty members, and I can select the units randomly, and then I can approach them. And even when I approach them, I can assume the response rate of 30% or 20%, because most of the cases they may not be interested in giving you the data set. So I can assume the response rate of 30, and uh, I suppose I require 300 sample size, then I will ask for at least 2000 people selected randomly, uh, because nowadays random response rate is very poor. And even I myself say I do not want to fill any questionnaire. So I got a lot of requests from different people, and they ask me to, sir, please see this questionnaire, fill the questionnaire. And believe me, I do not have any interest in filling all the questionnaires. So it is very, very difficult to get the response, especially from the industry people. They do not have any interest in filling your questionnaire, because nowadays we are getting so many questionnaires uh, every day. So even especially I'm getting at least 25 questionnaires in 1 week, in Facebook, in WhatsApp, in different sources, LinkedIn, even LinkedIn. These people ask me in LinkedIn that, so please fill this questionnaire. And filling the questionnaire is so boring. It's a tedious task. So and when I'm saying about myself, you can understand that if you ask anybody to fill the questionnaire, why they will fill the questionnaire, right? Why they will spend 10 minutes, 5 minutes on you. So getting the responses from the questionnaire is very difficult. And I always prefer that somebody takes time from me, and let's talk on the topic. So interview schedule method is best method I found in my life. that if you ask the person to for 5 minutes request and ask the questions to the respondent, then they will like to talk. They will like to discuss the topic. Questionnaire filling of the questionnaire is very boring. Okay, so sampling frame means from where you are having the list. Now, what is the difference? Difference is that if you are having the sampling frame, you can decide from where data can be collected, and you can approach them and get the data. Response rate, you can assume 1% even, no problem in that. But you have to mention in the research design that in the sampling frame, we initially selected 3,000 people for the data collection, assuming the response rate of 10%. So assuming the rate of 10% means you are able to justify 300 sample size in that case. Okay. Then after that, but what happens is the sample size is not available. For example, in more than 80% of the studies I came through, the sample size sampling frame is not available. When sampling frame is not available, what to do? So in that case, you cannot go for random sampling. It is wrong to. It is a just manipulation to go for a random sampling if you don't have the sampling frame. So in that case, you can approach the snowball sampling, or you can go for a judgmental sampling, or a convenience sampling, or a cluster sampling, right? So sampling frame is one of the important concept to decide which sampling method to adopt. Okay, let's move to next. So I already decided sampling frame. Now, after defining the basic key concepts of sampling design, so now let's talk about the sampling designs. There are two types of sampling designs. Number one, probability sampling design. For example, in every year, or not every year, sometimes the Delhi government DDA offer the flats, and suppose there are 30,000 flats they are offering to the public. And what is the procedure that anybody can, those who require the flats, they can apply, and there will be lottery method. And after the lottery method, the flats are allocated. Okay, now in this question, I'm asking you, suppose you are the applicant, do you think you will have a equal chance to get the flat? And the answer is yes. Why? Because there is a entirely scientific process to draw the lottery. So whenever you apply for a lottery method, we assume that the chance of winning the lottery for each and everybody is equal, right? Assuming this, if you are assuming this is called probability sampling. Means the chances of getting into the sample is equal for everyone. But if I ask you that in your college or in your, because I think most of you are in from academics. So if I ask you that, what is the chance that you will get promoted this year? Do you have the equal chance of get promotion? And I hope that most of you, more than 90% of you will say that no, sir, chances are not equal. Somebody is having more chances, somebody is having less chances. And because promotion, there are many factors affecting the promotion. And in India, even the caste is very important in getting the promotion. So it may be possible. Yeah. So the chances are not equal. The question is, the answer is the chances are not equal. So in this case, we call them non-probability sampling, because the chances of somebody is high, the chances of somebody is less. So this is the non-probability sampling. Okay. Now we will move to the different aspect of different sampling technique. So there are two types of sampling: the probability sampling and the non-probability sampling. Okay. Now, I will explain the non-probability sampling. See, so you can see that there is a population, target population, and in target population, uh, you are selecting only those who are near to you. So in this case, this red T-shirt man is the researcher, and he decided to take the data from the people who are near to him. So when you collected the data, when you collect the data from the people who are near you is known as convenience sampling. And I'm telling you, there are, because as a faculty members, we assign the different projects to the MBA students. And what they did, suppose in MBA there are 8 sections, right? And A B C D E G F. So suppose I'm teaching section A. So when I give the assignment to the section A, so what they do, what they're doing. So they ask their friends to fill the questionnaire. So they go to the student of section B, section C, section D, and ask them to fill the questionnaire. So this method is known as convenience sampling. Convenience sampling means whoever is near to you, just ask him to provide the sample. And convenience sampling is not the recommended sample design in the PhD or a research paper, because it is believed that convenience sampling bring a lot of biasness in the results, because it entirely depends upon you, that who are near to you, right? And who are near to you, it means they will have a specific demographic profiles, and the results are heavily influenced by the people who are near to you. So this is called a convenience sampling. Now, basically, I'm giving you one example. Suppose you go to the Bengal and ask them, so do you like him? Do you like Modi? So no, they say no. We don't like Modi. We don't. We like only Mamta Didi. So Mamta Didi is the best, right? So because they have a feeling like this. Okay. So basically, the answers depends upon the area. The answers depend upon the people who are near to you, right? So this method is known as convenience sampling. Convenience sampling is not recommended at all in the PhD or a research paper. If you are adopting the convenience sampling, you have to justify. You have to give a strong justification for this kind of sampling method. Okay. Then we are having another method called judgmental sampling. Basically, I know that many of the scholars go for convenience sampling, but they call them judgmental sampling. Why judgmental sampling? They say that we fix some criteria and we select only those people who fall in that criteria. Like for example, uh, suppose um, send I give one assignment to the MBA student and ask them to put at least 3 criteria. And if the respondent satisfy these 3 criteria, then only you ask him to get the questionnaire filled. So one criteria is that, suppose do you have a social media account? Are you using the Facebook? Number one, this is the number one criteria. Number two, from how many years you are using the Facebook? So they should use the Facebook from at least 5 years. This is the second criteria. The third criteria is that they must be the member of some groups. Some, because you know that in Facebook there are many groups, like even we are having the group of scholars, and even I am running one group also that is having 5,000 members. So the third criteria is that you should be have the membership of some groups. If these 3 criteria are fulfilled, then you can go for the data collection, otherwise not. But the problem is that then other again the MBA student go to this student of section B, section C, and ask them, so do you have any Facebook account? They said yes, we all have Facebook account, and we are all using from last 5 years. We are already have the members of many groups. So basically, it is nothing. It is the revised face of the convenience sampling, right? So you can say that if you apply cream powder on the convenience sampling, it becomes a judgmental sampling. So judgmental sampling is nothing. It is a makeup of convenience sampling. But really, what is judgmental sampling? Judgmental sampling means you apply your mind to decide that whether I should get the data from this person or not. In true sense, the judgmental sampling is the applying some reasoning whether I should get the data from this respondent or not. For example, when you go to a mall, and you know that in mall different kind of people comes. There are many. So suppose you want to study the buying behavior of the shoppers, right? Now the in mall, suppose you go to the mall and you saw that there are many boys roaming there, girls roaming there, and they bunk their classes from the colleges and they come to the mall. And basically because they are empty, they are free, so you when you go approach them, they like to answer your queries. But do you think they are the respondent? They should be the respondent, no, because they are not coming for the shopping, right? So in judgmental sampling, at least you can take, you can decide, you can put some criteria, and you can decide on your own that should I take the data from this person or not. So in this case, if you want to study the shopping customers, you should not take the data from the students, right? uh, Whether they are coming the mall daily or not. So in judgmental sampling, basically you have to give the strong justification that if the people satisfy this criteria, then only I will take the data from these respondent, otherwise not. So this is the judgmental sampling. Now the third sampling is known as quota sampling. Quota sampling. Now the quota sampling is nothing. It is the fixing the percentage of few demographic profiles. Like for example, the best example you can understand is that in education, the 80% is the are the assistant professor, and 15% are the associate professor, and 5% are the professor. I'm telling you in most of the private colleges. I'm not talking about the government. The government in government the professors are more, associate professors are even more, and assistant professor less because there is no hiring in government institutions. But in private colleges, assistant professor are in bulk. The private colleges are not. They do not want to promote the assistant professors. And you may be shocked to know that in this Corona time, many academicians lost their job, and most of them are professors and associate professors. Why? Because they are getting more salary. So, so when we talk about the quota sampling, you are getting the data from the academicians. So you can decide that 80% should be the assistant professor, and even this in this 80%, 60% are females. So you can decide that in 80%, 60% should be females, 20% should be males, and rest of the 15% we can take the associate professor. Even in associate professor, 60% are females and 20-30% are male. So, if you fix the percentage, I'm just joking, don't take it otherwise. So, if you fix the percentage to different categories, this is known as quota sampling. And after deciding the quota, you can go for the judgmental sampling or convenience sampling. So this is known as quota. So you can write it is a quota judgmental sampling, quota convenience sampling. So basically, quota sampling is not sufficient in itself. You have to follow some other sampling method. So like quota judgmental sampling, quotas, convenience sampling. So I hope you understand the quota. Quota means a fixed percentage of a specific group, and the group is decided on the basis of demographics. Now the next method is this is the best method, I think. Nowadays I have seen that suddenly most of the scholars adopted this snowball sampling. Suddenly, why suddenly? Because they feel that it is more scientific. So snowball sampling is a sampling where you are getting the respondent detail of the respondent from the respondent itself. Suppose I want to get the data from the corona patient. So I can go to one person who I know is was suffering from corona. Then he can tell me 10 other people who are also suffering the same problem. Then so basically what I'm getting the reference from the reference. So the LIC agents, they are having the expertise in getting the reference of the reference, right? So I hope you understand that. So when LIC agent come to you and say that, sir, can you give me some reference who is also taking the policy? So this is the example of snowball sampling. In snowball sampling, uh, you can you can, if you know one or two people, you can go to them and ask for their reference. Because recently, I know that recently we were conducting the study on bank employees, and in a specific section. So we try to find out three or four people on the basis of our link network. Then we ask them to provide two more reference, three more reference. So we ask each and everybody to give two reference, three reference. So in this way, we able to select the data from the 200 respondent. So this method is known as snowball sampling. And snowball sampling is mostly effective when sampling frame is not there. If you don't have sampling frame, then snowball sampling is the best method to apply. So I repeat, if you don't have the sampling frame, then snowball sampling can be used. For example, suppose your patients are the some specific people, like those who are having the Mercedes car, right? So in that case, you can find out few people who are in your relationship or network who are having the Mercedes car or BMW car. Then you ask for the references. Then you ask for the references. References. So do you know anybody who is having this car also? Do you having any? Do you having? Or when you are studying the people in a group, especially like you know that there is a self-help group in rural areas. So you can catch some people who are the group, who are the members of the self-help group. Then you can ask them, so do you know anybody else who is also the member of the group? So in those cases, this snowball sampling will work. Snowball sampling is a good sampling method in case if sampling frame is not available, and these kind of people are not easily available. Like for example, data scientist, right? If you are collecting the data from the data scientist, the data scientists are not available on the Facebook or any other group. There are many groups in the LinkedIn and Facebook also, but it is very difficult to catch them. So if you practically go for a data scientist and ask them, sir, do you know anybody else who is also a data scientist? So then this kind of sampling will work. Now let's move to the next part. So we are moving to the random sampling now. Random sampling means when the probability of selecting each and everybody is equal. When the probability of everyone to be the part of the sample is equal, then this is known as random sampling method. So random sampling method are of different types. The basic type is known as simple random sampling. The basic random sampling method is simple random sampling. So simple random sampling is nothing. It is a lottery. It's a lottery method. So there are two types of lotteries: manual lotteries and computerized lotteries. So you can go for a lottery method, whether it is a manual lottery or it is a computerized lottery. So if you have the sampling frame, if you have the list of all the people in the target group, then you can go for a lottery method. The lottery method may be simple random, or it may be computerized simple and random sampling. Like you can see that this person is picking out the some chits, right? And this is basically the example of simple random sampling. Then second method is called systematic random sampling. In systematic random sampling, I'm giving you one example. Suppose there is a class of 100 people, 100 students. There is a class of 100 students, and in you want to select only 10. You want to select only 10. So what you can do? You can apply lottery method in the first 10. Suppose number 6 will come in the lottery. Number 6 will come. Now, rest of the 9 student will be 16, 26, 36, 46, 56, 76, like this. So first person is collected with the help of lottery method. The first person is collected from the lottery method, and rest of the respondent lies on a particular interval, particular interval. So this is the example of systematic lottery method. Like you can see that the first person comes here, two, and rest of the person comes after the regular interval. This method is known as systematic random sampling. So one of the example I mentioned here, the for example, if there are 1 lakh element in the population, target population, and a sample of 1000 is desired. So in this case, the sampling interval I is 100. So if you divide 1 lakh by 1000 is 100. So a random number between 1 and 100 is selected. For example, it is 23. Then other will be 20, 123, 223, like this. So this method is basically known as the systematic random sampling. I hope you understand that. So first number is pick out from the lottery method, and all other methods comes on a regular interval. Okay. Now the next method is called stratified random sampling. Now, basically, when we talk about the groups, so there are two type of groups: heterogeneous group, homogeneous group. So heterogeneous group and homogeneous group. Like for example, if I ask you that suppose you reside in let's say in a city, can you say everybody in the city same? So you say no. In my city, there are many rich people, there are many poor people, right? There are many young people, there are old people. So the people are not same. So it is called heterogeneous group. So we call that as a cluster. So basically, cluster is a group of heterogeneous respondent. Similarly, strata is a group of homogeneous respondent. So when your respondents can be divided into homogeneous subset, then stratified random sampling can be applied. In education, we assume that the assistant professor is a homogeneous strata because all of them are young, all of them have less number of experience, right? So all of them are getting the almost same salary. So they are homogeneous. And associate professor means he's having at least a 5 year of experience, at low 10 year of experience. So he's having senior position. He must have some administrative position also. So we assume that associate professor is a homogeneous subset. So we call them as a strata. So assistant professor is a different strata. Associate professor is a different strata, and the professor is a different strata. So when we divide the target population on the basis of the homogeneity, homogeneity means some specific characteristics of the group, then this method is called stratified. After that, you can go for a random sampling, you can go for a systematic random sampling. So stratified random sampling is the combination of two things, two steps. In first stage, you divide the population into different homogeneous subset. Then in each subset, you select the respondent randomly by systematic random sampling or by simple random sampling. And for stratified random sampling, again, we must have the sampling frame. Otherwise, it is very difficult to justify that you applied stratified random sampling. Okay, then there are two types of stratified random sampling: proportionate or non-proportionate. If you keep the percentage of the size of a particular subgroup as per the population, then it is called proportionate. Otherwise, it is disproportionate stratified random sampling. Like you know that assistant professor, the number of assistant professor are always more. So you are keeping more sample size for this group, then it is called proportionate sample stratified sampling. In some cases, it may be disproportionate random sampling, stratified random sampling. Then we are having the cluster sampling. Cluster is a subset of the heterogeneous people. Basically, in most of the cases, we define cluster sampling as a area sampling, or because you know that every city can be divided into different clusters. In Chandigarh, there are many sectors. So when we divide the population on the basis of the area or on the basis of the uh, different clusters, so then we go for a random sampling, then it is known as cluster random sampling. Okay. So give me 1 minute. The charger is required. Okay. So cluster sampling means the population is divided into different clusters, and cluster is a set of heterogeneous subset, heterogeneous respondents, and then you go for, like I have seen in many theses, they say that my target population is Delhi NCR, and Delhi NCR is divided into Bahadurgarh, Sonipat, or Noida, Ghaziabad, Delhi. So they say that we pick this much people from Faridabad, this much people from Sonipat, this much people from Bahadurgarh. So this is cluster sampling, simply. Okay. Now, after defining the cluster sampling, let's talk about some sampling size, sample size, because this is the most important topic for the presentation. So I give proper focus on this topic also. The how to determine the sample size. Okay. So now let's. I'm telling you the formula first, because वो formula वाला concept जो है वो बड़ा चलता है आजकल. So everybody is asking the formula. There are many formulas I found in the research, right? But I am picking two formulas here for the for the calculation of the sample size. The first formula depends upon three variables. Number first, how much is the variability in the population? Number two, what is the confidence level? And number three, what is the margin of error? So if you decide three things in the study, then you can apply the formula. Number one, what is the variability? So variability is measured by the standard deviation. And if you assume that standard deviation is 50% or 20%, 30%, 40%, so it depends upon your choice that how much standard deviation is you are expecting. And the rule is very simple. If standard deviation is very less, for example, if you are if you are analyzing the BTech computer science students who are on the basis of their salary, so you know that more or less they are getting the almost same salary. This standard deviation is very less. So when the standard deviation is very less, when the variability is very less, in that case, population size may be less. But if the sample size is very low, very high, because if you are talking about the online shopping behavior, so in this case, the variability is very high. So when the variability is very high, then high population size should be there. Then you have to assign what is the confidence level, what is the probability of making type 1 error. So that is called level of significance. So if level of significance is 5%, then your confidence level is 95%. In most of the cases, we keep the confidence level as 95%. And then we decide what should be the margin of error. So margin of error is also constant, it is 5%. So when you decide all the three things, then you can apply this formula. This is the most common formula applicable in the applicable for calculating the sample size. Here and in the sample size, Z is the confidence level, and if confidence level is 95%, then the value of Z is 1.96. The value of Z is 1.96 if your confidence level is 95%. Then if sigma, the standard deviation, sigma is the standard deviation, and sigma square is the variance of the population. So normally if you assume that sigma is 50% and error is also 5%, then the formula gives you the value of 384. This formula gives you the value of 384. Now there is a twist. If suppose your sample size is 300, then you can say that my standard deviation is 40% or 45% rather than taking 50%, because if you decrease the sigma value, your sample size will less. Similarly, if your sample size is 600, 700, 800, then you can increase the value of sigma. You can say that my sigma is 70% or 80%. In that case, you will get the more sample size. So basically, I have seen that a researcher only manipulate this formula because in this formula, Z is constant, error margin error is constant. Only thing which you can vary is the standard deviation. So if you changes the standard deviation, this formula give you the results desired by you. If you decrease the standard deviation less than zero point 0.5, it will give you the sample size of 200, 300. Suppose this sigma is zero point 0.3. Suppose the standard deviation is zero point 0.3, then I think the population sample size comes near about 200. Then if you increase the sample size to zero point 0.6, zero point 0.7, then the sample size comes 500 or 600. So in that case, you manipulate the sample size. This is just a manipulation. There is no logic of this is not a scientific formula that if you go for this formula, you will get always the 100% accurate results. No, I don't believe in this formula, frankly speaking, because there are many problems in this formula. For example, in your questionnaire, there are 50 examples, 50 statements. So which variability you are taking? There is no answer on this question because in most of the books, right? So they are talking about one variable. So if the variation on single that variable is this, then you can go for this formula. But the problem is that in questionnaire we are having 50 variables, 60 variables. So how to decide that which variable is applicable for this formula? So there is no answer of this. So it is a general assumption that let's take the standard deviation of all the variables at a time, zero point 0.5, then use that formula. So there are many confusions regarding this formula. So there is one solution that you can take all the variables together and then take the variation of that. So many scholars also say that sir, we can take the mean of all the scale variables and then we find out the standard deviation, and on the basis of that standard deviation we can define the sample size. So this is the case we are facing on almost daily basis. Okay. Now the second formula is that, so when you know the population proportion, like population proportion means when you know that 80% of the faculty members are assistant professor. So in that case, you can apply this formula. So when population proportion is known, then Z square PQ upon E square. In this case also, Z is the confidence level and its value is 1.96, and Z square, E square is the margin of error, and P is the proportion. So here P is 80%. You know that the because your target population are faculty members and especially assistant professors, so you can say that P is 80% because 80% people are assistant professor, and in after Corona it becomes 85%, I think. And when population proportion P is not known, then you can apply simple. If you don't know anything, you don't have the standard deviation, if you don't have the population proportion, simply apply this n equal to 1 upon 4 Z square E square. But I've never seen this formula applicable in any of the thesis, so there's a doubt in this formula also, because in this formula, if you apply the Z is equal to 1.96 and E is equal to uh, E is equal to 0.05, then whatever the value comes, it is the universal sample size. Okay. So after knowing all these formulas, basically I also find out some other methods to determine the sample size, and these methods are better as compared to these formulas. So let me explain these methods. So one of the method I adopted is the Nanelli principle. Nanelli principle is Nanelli was a professor. He gave the formula in 1979, and he said that if you are having suppose 10 variables who are measured on the Likert scale, then your sample size should be 10 times. So the Nanelli principle say that there should be at least 10 cases for each item in the instrument being used. Instrument, I think I hope you understand this. Instrument means scale, questionnaire. So if in the questionnaire you are having 50 statements, so you must have the sample size of 500. 500. There should be at least 10 cases for each item in the instrument being used. Thus, if we go by this assessment, the an overall sample size of around 450 would be deemed sufficient, as in totality we deal with around 45 items. So I have seen that most of these scholars also give this justification that in my questionnaire there are 30 statements, and so if you see this statement, there is a word called item. So basically, in the questionnaire, item is the statement which is measured on the Likert scale, 1 to 5 scale or 1 to 7 scale. So you just count the number of items, number of statements in the questionnaire, multiply by 10. So that will be your sample size. And this nullity principle is well accepted in the research. So there is no problem in justifying your sample size with the help of nullity principle. The second method is that suppose you are going to apply the factor analysis or EFA or CFA, then the KMO estimate will justify your sample size. The KMO statistics is based on the variance lying on the data set. And you know that the KMO, again, one thing is very common between KMO and Ranelli principle. You cannot take the categorical variable. You can take only the item, the variable, the items or the statements which is measured on the Likert scale. So if KMO value is more than zero point 0.7, then you can take it as a sufficient sample size, right? So in many theses, I saw this that at the place where they are explaining the sampling design, they mentioned that we applied KMO test in all these statements and found that KMO is more than zero point 0.7. So we can say the sample size is adequate. So this is another. Now, actually, when I read different books, so there is a book called Zygmunt, the research method by Zygmunt, and this is one of the best book I found in my life on the research methods. So the Zygmunt say that actually there is no reason of defining the sample size. The sample size can be justified if you discuss the sample size with your guide, with the experts. And if your experts say that the 300 should be the sample size, or in some cases the sample size should be 2000 or 3000 also. Because if you're talking about like user of mobile phone, user of laptop, because nowadays everybody is having this mobile phone and laptop. So in that case, the sample size may be 200, 2000, 5000, 10,000. So actually, whatever the expert says, right? So if you say that this is a representative sample, then it's justified. So if according to me, if 5 experts say that your sample size is okay, this is also a representative sample. But I know that in India nobody will believe in experts. So if you justify like this, they will not accept it. So this is the problem. But Rickman say that the scholar can decide the sample size after discussing with the experts or the guide. So that is a representative sample. Then the fourth method is which is the most common method which is used for justification of the sample size, is the Bartlett sample size determination table. The Bartlett, there is a table. Actually, I am showing you this table. Yeah, this is the Bartlett table. Now, if you understand this table is also based on the formula. Basically, if the margin of error is 5%, 3.5%, 2.5%, 1%, and your confidence level is 95%, right? So the Bartlett table suggested you that if your suppose your population size is 1000, suppose your population size is 1000 and your margin of error is 5% and confidence level is 95%, then the sample size of 278 is sufficient. Similarly, if your population, now, if you see on the higher side, maximum side, if your population size is 3 crores, right? The last figure, you can see the last figure. The last figure is 3 crores around, or 300 million. So the sample size is required to be 384 if your margin of error is 5% and confidence level is 95%. So 384 is the magic figure according to the Bartlett table of sample size. So most of the scholars justified their sample size by this table. They say that if my uh, if my sample size is more than 384, this is the best example, this is the best reference of quoting my justifying my sample size. And this table clearly mentioned that up to the population size of 300 million or 3 crores, the sample size of 384 is sufficient. The sample size of 384 is sufficient. Yeah, but if you changes your the margin of error, like for example, if you change your margin of error from 5% to 2.5% or 1%, the sample size will increase, right? Because in some cases the confidence, even some cases confidence level is also increases to 99%. So in confidence, if your confidence level is 99%, then sample size of 663 is required with the assumption of margin of error 5%. Okay. After that, we also defined some of this method also, because recently I guided some PhDs from the top universities in India, and I mentioned this criteria also, and this is well accepted by the panel. So this is the Bentler and Chow criteria. The Bentler and Chow criteria say that this is a basically this is a solution of less sample size, because in some cases you may collected the data of the top management people or very rare people. In that case, your sample size may be only 200, 190, 150, like that. So then you can apply this Bentler Chow criteria. This Bentler Chow criteria is saying that it is the half of the Nanelli. So you can say that Bentler and Chow criteria is the half of Nanelli, means 5 cases per item, but provided if your data is normally distributed. So according to the Bentler and Chow criteria, if the data is normally distributed, the minimum sample size required is 5 cases for each scale variable. For example, if in a study, if 50 variables are included, then minimum sample size of 250 is needed. So I found that this criteria is also well accepted in the research. And then we came across some other methods like Slovin and Yamini method, but yet to read this method particularly. So this is my presentation and about sample size distribution, and the time is 11:15. So now I am giving 15 minutes for query session, and you can ask your query because there are many messages comes in question and answer.
So, can we first take the Q&A box questions, and then we will resort to the other chat box. In the meantime, I'll concise from this.
Okay, okay. So let me see the
Q&A box सर फिर
Q&A
chat में
box.
से pick कर लेंगे जल्दी जल्दी.
Yeah. Okay, the first question is what is the normal mean here? Normal mean, I think the mean is the normal mean. Okay, I think you are talking about this the um, statistic and the parameter. Basically, when we calculate the mean from the sample, it is called the statistic, and when you calculate the from mean from the population, it is a parameter. Otherwise, normal mean, I'm not getting the sense of the query. What is the normal mean? Okay. Uh, Radha Singh is asking, kindly explain the variance in detail, for example, with clarity. Actually, my topic is not to explain the variance. Variance is the dispersion, measure of dispersion. So, sampling distribution is the distribution of sample statistic or the sample. Okay, wait, this question is good. So, although sampling distribution I have not explained, but basically sampling distribution is the distribution of the sampling statistic. Like for example, you are calculating the mean. In most of the cases, we are calculating the mean of the samples. So the distribution of the mean of the samples, and we are not picking only one sample. We are picking only many samples from the target population. let's say your target population is having 1000 units, and suppose you decided to pick 100 samples from the target population. If you noted down the mean of each sample and distribute it, sorry, make the distribution of it, then this distribution is known as sampling distribution. I hope it is clear now. Sampling distribution is the distribution of sample statistic. And how to justify small sample size? Shweta Kalra is asking how to justify small sample size. So Shweta, as I told you that the Bentler tau is one of the method which is justifying the small sample size. And even if you keep the sigma of the variable very low, then you can also justify the small sample. And basically, when we talk about the qualitative research studies, when we talk about qualitative research studies, even the sample size of 10, 20, 30 is justified. And you know that in meta-analysis, the sample size is hardly 10 or 15 or 20. And all the papers are published with this sample size. That is not a problem. In qualitative, sample size is obviously very low, but and this small sample size can be justified with the help of your respondent also. I am remembering one case that I was listening the lecture of a editor of a journal of a category. So he told me one thing. So they received one paper where the respondents say that this study is based on the interview of CEO of Indian companies. And in the sample size, he mentioned that I take the interview of 300 CEO of Indian companies. So then the editor say that how it is possible that you can take the interview of 300 CEO? एक से तो टाइम मिलता नहीं है, आप 300 से आप टाइम ले रहे हो. So this is unbelievable. So if you are taking the interview of a CEO, I think it is 5 or 10 are at the max is better. So I hope you know that you can understand. So if your respondent are rare, then even the sample size of 25, 20 are enough. Okay. Now Radha Singh is again asking some question. What is the standard measure of to define sample size? Kindly explain with example. Sample standard measure to define sample size. I think Radha, I already explained 5 or 6 method to define the sample size. One is the formula method, KMO method, Bentler-Tau method, Nanelli method, right? So I hope you got your answer. Then, yeah. Dhananjay is asking, it is said that the title should be self-explanatory. If we don't specify the area of target population, that it not be incompetent. Okay. So I think you are talking about the mentioning the target population in the title. Basically, many people ask me, sir, why do we do the research? Why research is important? And even the answer is basically the in research we are focusing on the theory. The important area, the important aspect of the research paper is the theory. We should focus on the theory, and theory cannot be localized. We never said that this theory is applicable in Delhi. We cannot say that this theory is applicable in Bareilly. So these are the wrong conventions that the theory are local. So why do we make the theory local? Right. So when I saw the title, like I have seen many Indian title that the behavior of social media users in Bareilly, I'm telling you, this is a research paper I found, and so the behavior of social media users in Muradabad. So now my question is that are they different? Are the social media users in Muradabad are different? Are they aliens? So why you are saying Muradabad, right? So I this is a foolish thing from my perspective, because the objective of the research is to study the concept, the theory. And when you say that of let's say Chennai of or Muradabad, so it is a wrong thing, because because from my perception, they are not the aliens. They are like normal people. So why you are putting the target population in your topic? So I hope you got the answer, because we want to study the theory, and theory is generalized. In none of the paper I found that this theory is limited to Europe only, this theory is limited to US only, this theory is limited to. I never saw this.
So I'll just take up the questions quickly to help you out, sir. There is a question by Shweta Kalra. She's asking that if the questionnaire and interview are not the methods to collect responses, how more we can, what is an alternative method to collect responses from 300 people?
Basically, when you take the interviews, I think the 300 people is very difficult. Um, if you talk about the interview schedule method, then it is fine, because in interview schedule method it is systematic. But if you are talking the unstructured interview, 300 is not sufficient. 300 is too much.
Another question by Sheetal Gadekar, ma'am. She's asking that about the sample size, that small or large. She's asking that if 25 observation, when fitted into a normal distribution, if it is okay, should we go for a larger sample or small sample? Will do the
It is
work.
just impossible that the data of 25 got a normal distribution. It is just impossible, or it is just by chance.
So
So the
there's
sample size of 25 is not a large sample.
sufficient sample size. So another
Definitely.
question that a researcher is looking for the target population of students of public school in UP, and she is asking that what should be the sampling frame for me?
Okay, list of students in the schools. It is a sampling frame. Sampling from frame is just the list of students studying in the different schools.
So there is a question being asked that what do you mean? What request you to just explain once? What do you mean by snowball sampling, sir?
A snowball sampling is that when we find out the respondent on the basis of the references. When we find out the respondent on the basis of the references.
So another question by another anonymous attendee is that what should be the best way to choose a sample size? They are taking in Rewari district for the female participation in agriculture. So basically the question is that what is the best way to decide on a sample size?
Okay, so actually the sample size depends upon the method you are applying, the statistical method you are applying. If you are planning to applying the parametric method, then I think you can go for a Bentley-Chow criteria or the Nunelli principle, or the Bartlett test table.
Sir, another question in extension only is that should we go for random sampling if 10 sampling is there in a state which are to be taken, sir?
Random sampling is always preferred if you have the sampling frame and a list of the people in the target group, target population, then random sampling is justified.
Sir, another question is that in systematic random sampling, is it always essential to have sampling intervals as integers?
In which test?
Sir, in the systematic random sampling.
Yes, in systematic random sampling is possible when you are having the sampling frame, and the first observation is picked up by the lottery method, and then regular interval is required
So it is
between
compulsory,
the.
sir. Yeah. So another question is that what is the difference between strata and cluster sampling? I have been getting this question on chat also, sir.
Basically, cluster means the subset of heterogeneous people, and the strata means the subset of homogeneous people. Like the teenagers is a homogeneous subset, and the people who are residing in sector 12 of Chandigarh is a heterogeneous people, right? Or the respondent in Badurgarh is a heterogeneous, because they are not same. So strata means homogeneous subset, and cluster means heterogeneous subset.
So Mangla Tomar sir is asking to decide for you. So he's asking from you that what is the best sampling method, whether random or cluster, according to you.
But basically, you are asking that which is more practical, I think. So
Mangla Tomar
because
sir is asking that.
yeah, because most of the cases we don't have the sampling frame, so going to the random sampling is difficult. So no, so that's why we have to move to the non-random sampling. And in non-random sampling, the best method I found is the snowball sampling or judgmental sampling.
There's a question by Dr. Sanjeev Mohante, sir. He's asking that what is the difference between samples and sampling? That is what it is there. And
What
if
is
we
the difference
difference
between
between
sample and sampling.
जी,
Sample is the subset of the population, and sampling is the method, basically.
method which is.
Method
Sir,
of picking the sample from the population, the target population.
there's a question by Nagamani KM, sir, that if the population is 1 lakh, can we take a sample of 500 for research, sir?
Sufficient, it's more than sufficient.
Ji, sir. Sir, there's another question by Sheetal ma'am. What is the difference between quota sampling and proportionate stratified random sampling?
Okay, quota sampling we use in the case of non-random sampling, because in all the books the quota sampling is mentioned in the category of non-random sampling, and proportionate stratified sampling is a part of random sampling. And in proportionate random sampling, basically, it is a random sampling number one. Quota sampling is not random sampling. Sampling is a non-random sampling. And in proportionate random sampling, you fix the percentage on the basis of the proportion of the different homogeneous subset, and then you go for a random sampling. So this is the technical difference between the quota sampling and stratified proportionate sampling.
Sir, in the session, it has been like stated that I think उसी में से question आया that by Krishna Kumar sir, that for every population size, is it necessary only for a sample to range between 384 to 9603?
Yeah, basically, in general, I'm telling you, in most of the PhD thesis, if your respondent are not the special people, your the sample size should be greater than 384.
Sir, another question that why, is it wrong or unacceptable if we go for judgmental sampling, sir?
No, no, it's entirely justifiable. It is good to go for judgmental sampling, but your criteria should be practical. The criteria you are fixing for judgmental sampling should be practical, should be realistic.
So Priyanka ma'am is asking that can the entire target population become the sample? I think
So sorry.
Priyanka ma'am is asking that can an entire target population become the sample? I think there is no issue in that.
Actually, it is possible for census study. Census, when you are moving to census study, then it is possible. Otherwise, in sampling design, it is not practically possible.
Sir, there is a question by Vineet Srivastava, sir. He's asking that there are creditable research papers which are doing using purposive sampling.
Purposive sampling is the another. Is the I think it is a Kothari name of. There is a very old book or research method that is using the purposive sampling. Otherwise, purposive sampling is the second name of judgmental sampling.
Sir, another question relating to snowball sampling only, that since snowball sampling is non-random, can we make it random in some way?
No.
Another question is by, I think, in relation to census sampling only, Nasir sir is asking that why census sampling is not used as large size of sample draws correct result.
Basically, normally the size of the population is in many crores. So that's why it is not possible to take the data from each and everybody. Because whenever we focus on the theory, then the sample size, the population is obviously in billions and millions. So it is not possible to take the data from each and everybody. So that's why sample study is more, because actually sample means you are studying a theory, you are focusing on theory. Suppose I want to know that what is the perception of the employees of a hospital. It is not a study actually. We should not take it. We should not consider it as a research study. It is just a problem solving study. So business consulting is different. Research papers are different. In research, sample studies are taken because population is unlimited.
Sir, there is a question that, again and again, in relation to sample size only, there's a question that do we always have to adopt a formula for the purpose of finding out the exact or the appropriate sample size? I think there was already
Yeah,
been.
actually, in India, many people want that. Many panel members, many guides want this. So they want you to apply any formula.
So the question is, sir, is it appropriate or should be done or not?
Yeah, you can do that. It's a manipulation of the formula, nothing else.
Sir, we'll just take two more questions. That one question is by Surabhi, sir. How to collect random sample if sampling frame is not available?
Uh, okay, actually, sample size is not related to the sampling frame. Sampling method is related to the sampling frame. So, sample size you can decide on the basis of different other criteria. Sampling frame is just the list of the respondent in the target population from where you can pick the sample. So, sampling design depends upon the sampling frame. Sample size is not designed, not decided.
Sir, there are two questions, one by Parajita ma'am, ek by Dr. Adpar, in relation to convenience sampling. That is convenience sampling unscientific, and can we use it for the purpose of like collecting data in the education sector?
It is biased actually. The biasness of in convenience sampling is very high because it entirely depends upon the people who are around you. So that's why it is not recommended because there's a lot of biasness. Chance of biasness is there.
Sir, I'll just take one question. Barkha ma'am, I request you to please repeat your question so that I can take up. And Tushti ma'am, that also. वो दोनों नाराज हो रहे हैं कि हाँ मेरे questions हमारे questions मिल जाए. We'll just take two
अरे,
questions and then we'll wind up the session, ma'am. Uh, Another question there is by sir, that how we will come to know that a particular sample represents the whole population. Tushti ma'am and Barkha ma'am, I request you to please put your question again so that I can take it up and then we'll wind up the session. Sir, a question by Tushti ma'am, that how to determine standard deviation? Is it based on previous simple studies or one can just imagine? And
no,
how to
no. Basically, in some many theses, I found that they are doing the pilot survey to find out the standard deviation.
uh,
So pilot survey may be the one of the reason to decide the standard deviation of the variables.
so, sir, in no way, like Tushti ma'am is asking, that it is no way based on the previous similar studies, or one just has to imagine. Imagination is not there. So, standard deviation has to be done
In
on some,
research, imagination will not work.
will not work. Sir, another question by Tushti ma'am, that how to determine if data is normally distributed.
There are many statistical tests which will tell you whether your data is normally distributed or not. For example, if you are dealing with the finance data, that Jacob-Villa test is there. If you are dealing with the cross-section data, then Kolmogorov-Smirnov test is there, or Shapiro-Wilk test is there. If you don't want to use this test, then at least skewness and kurtosis is there.
Sir, a question that by one of our team members, that a PhD is being done on tourism department in Rajasthan on income and expenditures on the monuments. What should be the target population should be there? How to determine the target population?
Basically, actually, the study you are talking about is actually a local study. So local study means when you are taking the particular problem of a region. So it is not a global study, it is a local study. So in local study, the people belong to that state is the population. Right. If you are talking about the residents, then the resident of Rajasthan is the population. And if you are talking about the tourists, then the tourists which are visiting to the Rajasthan is the population.
Sir, question by Tushti ma'am only in continuation, that she's specifically asking for normal distribution with reference to population parameters from which she's trying to derive a sample.
A population parameter is always considered to be normal. Population parameter is always 100% considered to be normal. So there is no issue of the normality of the population parameter. The issue is the normality of the sample statistic.
Sir, can you please in the chat box or somewhere type the book on research methods that have been mentioned so that it is easy for the students to go through it?
Zygmunt, Zykmund, Zykmund, Zygmunt.
Barkha ma'am is asking a question on how, where do we apply non-parametric test? In relation to that, Barkha ma'am, I'll just answer that entire session is a non-parametric test, and there your
Okay, I'm
questions will
showing
be.
you this book, Zygmunt. So you can see the author name,
I think,
Zygmunt.
sir, is if book is visible to everybody, those who want to note the spellings, that will be easy.
Yeah. So this is the book, and this is my favorite book. Always with me.
Sir, there's a question. I think I've tried to cover all the questions. Still there are a lot of participants are saying that I'm doing convenience sampling, but I'm just trying to find out some questions which are not common. There's a question by Kalpana ma'am. She's asking, can we mix can there be a mix of sampling techniques because they so
Yes,
much coincide?
yes. There is a mix of sampling technique very frequently.
There's another question that when should we use stratified sampling methods?
Stratified sampling method is used when you are having sampling frame number one, when you can divide your population into the subset of the homogeneous groups. Then you can apply stratified. For example, like in education, you know that we have the details of all the faculty members, and we can divide them into specific groups. So in that case, the stratified random sampling is applicable.
Sir, so basically it is like this that what we are trying to do is that in relation to defining of the formula of sample size and things like that are being asked by the participants, I think as you have already concluded that it basically depends upon the discretion of your supervisor, how you have to go about it, a particular formula, and there is no set pattern which has to be followed. Anything else you want to add, sir? Because that is one of the questions that is basically being asked by many participants.
Basically, now there are different methods which are used for justification of the sample size.
Mhm.
So as I show you in this slide, like I'm showing you again. So these are the different methods like these two formulas and this Bartlett size, Camo, Nanelli, Bentler, Tau, Slovin, and this table. So these methods you can apply, you can use to justify your sample size. And actually, I'm telling you in research, if you give the literature support to your sample size, nobody can challenge your sample size.
Ma'am, sir, there is one question that I'm picking up here by Bhupender sir, that what is standard errors in sampling analysis? Just we can have it.
Standard error I will take in next session, so
Yes,
no
sir.
point in
ठीक है.
using that. That.
I think, sir, that brings an end to the session, brings an end to the Q&A. I think we should take a break here and we come back for the session at within half an hour or so, sir, for the
Okay.
next session. Sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I am really grateful to you for this really knowledgeable session. And I know the kind of questions that are there. And always at the end of the sessions, we share your email IDs. You're also very active on Facebook, so questions can be asked there, easily accessible. I think after this session, when they try to have queries from you, they'll understand that you take up almost every queries that is there. So, sir, after the break, we come back at 12 o'clock for the sessions.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.